have everyone that's working with folks all the way into adulthood. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, so you are here today. This is self-determination, informed decision-making, and supported decision-making. This is part 1 of 2. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We're here today. I am Angie Chappell, and Barb Seferis is also going to be presenting as well. And the Charting the Life course trainings are provided by the generosity of the Family Resource Network of Ohio, funded through the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities and the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. Because of this generous funding, these trainings can be brought to you for free. You can have access to the frnohio.org website, where you can find a lot of information, and you could find more about more trainings as well. And there is a Facebook page if you are a Facebook person that you can look at for some stories to share, some stories that other folks are sharing, and some stories that you may want to share. Okay, I mentioned that Barb and I are here, but the rest of our team is Tracy Mans and Erica Young is also on the call, and Erica will be monitoring the chat and dropping some things in there for you. So as we're moving along, I see she's already dropped the Family Resource Network website in there for you, and any handouts and things that we have going on, she will be dropping those in the chat for you as well. Okay, so real quick, this is me. I am Angie. Excuse me. And first and foremost, I am a sibling. So my brother, Dave, has cerebral palsy. He uses a communication device and a wheelchair. I have been Dave's sister and best friend and caregiver and a little bit of everything since birth. I was 5 years old when he was born, and we have been kind of tight since then. We had another brother, my brother Ed. He passed away about 5-6 years ago. Yeah, so that was unfortunate. But yeah, so Dave and I are still very tight. I'm also mom to Nathan, and there's Nathan right there. So that's my son, and this is Kate. That is Dave's wife. I also am the caregiver to my dad. My dad, he's 87 now and lives with me. He's been living with me for about 5 years. And so I help him out. I've been in the disability field for a long time, because I was, like I said, started off working, being a caregiver for my brother. Then I worked at camps. I was a job coach. And I've been in education for 33 plus years now. I'm a Charting the Life course ambassador. I work at Case Western as an adjunct professor. And I also have just recently retired and transitioned over to working for Milestones Autism Resource. So that's me. And here's Barb.
Hi, everybody. I also am a sibling. I've worked in the field. This is my 50th year professionally, but have certainly supported my brothers. Both of them had disabilities. One had an acquired disability, one had a developmental disability, for over 60 some years. So, and I've also been a family caregiver, unpaid. I am an Ohio ambassador for Charting the Life course. And one of my professional roles that really supports my passion for self-determination and informed decision-making is, as a speech language pathologist, I often was asked to assess if people understood all the information related to an important decision in their life that would affect their life, and to assess that they understood the information and the consequences and made an informed, unbiased, without anyone influencing them. So I'm very passionate about this. So I look forward to seeing you today and also sharing information next Monday. Thanks, Angie.
You betcha. Okay, so there are the CPDUs or CEUs available from DODD if you are able to attend both sessions. So there's a session today and there's a session next week. Barb had said next Monday. And if you would like to get those hours, those clock hours, you need to attend both sessions. And we are going to ask you to keep your camera on and participate. We're going to hopefully have a breakout later on where you get a chance to have a little bit of time to talk and share. And then there's a feedback form that you'll get at the end of the Zoom. So make sure that you fill that out as well in order to get that credit. Okay, you'll get the certificate in an email. And you see it'll come from this no reply certifier.io in a couple of weeks after you fill that out. Okay. Okay, so let's dive into our content. So today's outcomes. We're going to introduce some concepts, as Barb had said, self-determination, informed decision-making, and supported decision-making. All very similar, all interconnected, but each one has its own little nuances we're going to talk through. We're going to talk about the life domain and engagement and sorry about that, and advocacy across the lifespan. We're going to introduce some resources to help you support and empower self-determination. So you have some handouts, and Erica has already dropped these in the chat as I glance over to the chat. So you have a copy of the PowerPoint as a PDF. There is the experiences and questions booklet and the self-determination everywhere and all the time handout. Okay, so make sure you see those in the chat and you get those downloaded for yourself. Okay, so we're going to go over a few definitions. It's really important to make sure everyone has a common understanding and we have common language as we move forward through any type of learning, new learning, even old learning, to make sure that we are still all on the same page as we talk through things. So real important that self-determination is a civil right. I mean, it's even in the language of law. And even though folks with disabilities weren't included in that piece until 1988, but they're included now. And what it is, it's the right to have control over making decisions that impact your life. Okay, everybody has this right, and it's all about, it's really most importantly about the knowledge, making sure you understand, you have the knowledge, as Barb said, as a speech language pathologist, assessing if people are understanding everything. That's really important. So it's not just about being given info, it's about understanding it. Okay, empower. So the word empower is to give power or authority to someone. Okay, and we want to make sure that we are shifting power to the individual. Okay, we are not empowering someone else to make a decision for them, but the power is shifted to the person who needs to make the decisions, the individual. Right, and then person-centered thinking. You see, not just planning. We often talk person-centered planning. But we need to also shift that to person-centered thinking. It needs to just be kind of how we go about business, not just at a planning moment, but it's about how we think to make sure that we're taking into consideration and that individual is at the center, is the person who is empowered, is the person who has the information, who has the knowledge, and who does understand everything about the decisions that are being made. Okay, so informed decision-making and informed consent. So informed decision-making is that making sure that the individual, that we all know all of the information and the consequences of decisions based on that information. So not just the information, but the if then, if this, then that, making sure that the consequences are discussed as well and understanding what those consequences mean. And then informed consent, it's legal. It requires a signature, written. So that's the thing, informed consent. And again, making sure that the individual understands it's freely given, there's no coercion, and that individual is making the decision freely. And then there's that signature that goes along with it. And we all do this. We've all done this at some point in our life. If we've ever gone to the doctor and we've had to say, yes, we want to have some particular procedure done or something, we sign something. We make sure we understand that prior, and we know the consequences, because they always say, there's the risk, making sure you understand the risk. A mortgage, a car note, all of those things are things that we want to make sure that we have that informed consent and we understand all of the consequences of our decisions. Okay, a few more definitions: capacity, competence, and then supported decision-making. So capacity, it's when we make just those decisions at specific times. Like I said, like for surgery, okay, it's something very specific. Do we have that capacity? Do we understand, and do we understand the consequences of that particular action at that moment? Here's the surgery. You're going to go under anesthesia. These are the risks. Okay, you sign off. That's about capacity. Excuse me. Excuse me. Competence is determined by a judge. Okay, so competence is global. It is something, it's much bigger. And it's when a judge determines whether or not an individual can or cannot make decisions on their own. So there's a difference there. Okay, so there's, and they are mutually exclusive, right? So one does not necessarily go along with the other, right? So you can have the capacity to make some decisions, as opposed to if you are deemed not competent, that's larger, but you may still be able to have some capacity in some senses. So just know there's a difference. So capacity is specific. Okay, it's about those specific situations, whereas competence is global. Excuse me. And then supported decision making is when you kind of confer with others. All right. So supported decision making is, and we all do this, it's when you have to make a decision, and rather than just snap into it, you talk to people, you consult with others. You are maybe doing some research on your own, right? But you're doing some kind of information gathering to make sure you have all of the information, that you do understand all of the consequences. Okay, and again, we all do this. I want to take a trip. I'm going to ask people, I'm going on a cruise. What's the best cruise line? What good things happened? What didn't? If thens all the time when we're asking about those situations that we want to gather information about. There's a current movement to have supported decision making get put into law. It's still kind of up in the air. We got to keep an eye on that one. Okay, and just some considerations as we're talking through self-determination, supported decision making, and informed decision making. It's just important to remember that it impacts quality of life. Okay, if someone is making decisions on your behalf or for you without you having all of the information or understanding the consequences, and somebody is just doing that for you, that can impact your quality of life. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to respond, but just think for a moment. How would it impact you if somebody took away your ability to make decisions? You make decisions every day, all the time. I mean, something simple like what you're going to have for breakfast, right? I mean, you choose what you're going to wear. I mean, those simple things. If somebody were to say, nope, you're having this for breakfast every day now, and you got to wear these clothes, that impacts you. Now we think about big things like surgery, where you're going to live, what job you're going to have. Those things are really big, and they absolutely can impact that quality of life. Okay. So just a few more considerations is that, there's this one line here: we need to support informed decision making, not just agreement. I mean, to me, like, everything on the slide is important, but that right there is like that to me is like the big thing that's on that slide, is that we need to support informed decision making, not just agreement. So it's not that we're going up to folks saying, you want to do this, right? This is the way to go, right? Right? This is what you want. That is not self-determination. That is not informed decision making. Okay, informed decision making is, again, talking through it, having all of the information, making sure you understand the info and the consequences. Okay, and as you could tell, like, I know Barb said she's really passionate about this. So am I. So I might get a little worked up over this. So sorry if I'm getting a little too into it. But yeah, this is like, to me, this is like this is so important. Okay. This is where like dignity comes in for me. This is it, you know, like if you're taking that away from people, you take away a lot of dignity. So yeah, I get worked up too. So sorry if I'm a little over the top. I do this with my brother all the time too, so he's used to me. Okay, so I'm gonna move over now to the one of the resources you have is that blue book, and it talks about it takes us through, like, it's called the Experiences and Questions booklet, and it walks through these different domains. Okay, so there are these 6 domains within charting the life course. And as we talk about anything, we have to think about the connectedness of these domains and what, you know, how we are, how each one interacts with the other, and how we are making sure that individuals are living their good life within each of these domains. Okay, so like about where we spend our time, where we work, who we talk to, where we live, how we stay safe and secure. And I'm gonna go here. So this blue book that you have that was in the chat, um, and I'll show you what it looks like inside. It has, you know, I'll just do that anyway. This is what it looks like. I think when you see it, it helps to understand. It has each one of the um, areas, each one of those life domains, and it walks through all stages of life from prenatal all the way to aging. So I know some folks said you have from 3 years old to death. Well, there you go. This is that whole lifespan. And excuse me. So the idea of it is that if you're working with an individual who is 10 years old, they might be school age. So these are considerations and questions and things to, you know, to concentrate on, to focus on at that age. But then it also has those questions and considerations and experiences from the life stage prior and the life stage that's coming up, so that you're not just thinking about right now, but we're thinking about what has happened, what has worked, what hasn't, what has been there for you or not. Where are we now, and where do you want to head? Okay, so now I'm going to back it up one. All right, so like I said, you know, this is what it's giving you, that questions and considerations, and that idea of like making sure that people have opportunities for experiences to help them to be able to make those good decisions and to understand everything they need to understand at each stage of life. Okay, so that's, as I said, that's what that's about. And this is, you know, each one looks the same. This one happens to be for daily life and employment, and this one is for advocacy and engagement. So you see, each one has all of the stages. It goes through the different areas, and it has different questions and considerations for each one of those. Okay, and I am going to turn it over to Barb as soon as I can stop my share.
Thanks, Angie.
And
as we switch, what I want to make a couple of points. One is capacity. You and I have capacity because we don't have we don't have a judge that said we are not competent and we need a guardian. We have capacity, but all of us may have experiences or times in our life when we don't have capacity. So think about, you know, I was in a very bad car accident. I was in a lot of pain. So I probably did not have a lot of capacity. All I wanted was help me feel better, you know. I worked with a young gentleman who we supported, and he had signed a living will. And we asked, oh, that's great. Now we know how to support him. When did he sign it? And the provider said he signed it just before they pushed him into the surgical suite and after they gave him anesthesia. And we said, we cannot accept that because he was drugged. And that is, you know, that is a time when you probably are not giving capacity because you cannot make an informed decision. You're stressed, and they're saying, here's a paper, sign it. The other thing to remember, some of you may be saying, yes, but I work with people who need guardians. Absolutely. But what we want to remember is if you look at the Ohio law for guardianship, it still says people have the right to participate in the decision. We believe that people have the right self-determination to participate in decision-making with the help they need. So please don't say yes, but. Our challenge to you is how are you? How are you supporting people? Another resource are these quick guides for each life stage. So instead of the 20-some page experiences and questions, if you're working with a specific age or life stage, or this is something you can easily share with people and families. When I've done work with kids who are just ready to graduate in that 14 to 21 age, 14 to 22, I will share the transition to adulthood booklet. I will give it to families. So we know that there are two domains that really challenge us to think about how can we support the development of the skill of self-determination. And those are daily life and employment and advocacy and engagement. So I'm not going to read these to you. Nobody works with infants that you identified. Excuse me, but you do work with 3-year-olds. So if you are working with young children, if you are perhaps an educator or you're supporting families to think about what they can do, are we giving kids opportunities to make choices? Simple choices. What do you want for snack? What juice do you want? What shirt do you want to wear? I was working with a mom of a 2-year-old. I said, hold up, she's not communicating choices. I said, put 2 shirts up. You bought them all, so you're not worried about which one she's going to pick, like you might be with a teenager. Have her pick. Are kids being given chores and responsibilities at home? Why? Because that teaches responsibility, it teaches decision making, it teaches consequences, and it teaches sequencing. So helping people identify how can I provide these opportunities. For early childhood, for advocacy and engagement, are there rules at home? You put your dirty clothes here. After you eat, you take your dish and put it on the counter, or whatever the rules are. For school age, are we, again, chores? Are we teaching people consequences? Think about why we all got allowances. So we could learn the consequences of, hey, you spent your money on the first day you got it. Oh, well, consequences are you can't spend it on anything else. Are we asking people, what do you want to do? Are we helping them have the opportunity? And again, I'm pushing you to think about how can we provide experiences and opportunities? Someone just doesn't become self-determined at age 18 when they reach age of majority. We have to teach that skill. Think about how your parents taught you the skills or how you are teaching your own children. In school age, we're looking at the self-determination or advocacy, not only of the student, but also of the parents. Are they beginning to learn how to advocate? Are they connecting with other people who have similar life experiences? Are we asking the student? One of the things we don't ask kids with disabilities is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Are we getting their ideas? What's of interest to them so that we can provide even more experiences and opportunities? As they transition, everybody gets stuck on leading the meeting. Well, they should be leading the content. And we've heard from transition age youth and their parents that they don't want to talk in meetings. They're overwhelmed. So how are we helping them organize their thoughts? And we've talked about several charting the life course tools that can help people prepare for the meetings, prepare not only students, but even self-advocates, adults, identifying their vision, sharing it, being able to use a one page to introduce themselves. Are we supporting people to share their goals, or are we saying, no, I'm sorry, you can't? Are we listening to them and recognizing that people and families are the content experts? They know what they want. They know what will be helpful. We as professionals are the process experts. We know the paper that has to be filed. We know what has to be written. Are we asking those youth what's important to them? Not their likes and preferences, but what absolutely has to be in their life, as well as what's important for them, what other people say, their counselors, their parents, their medical professionals. Are we teaching them that they have value and giving them opportunities to volunteer? Remember, an outcome of person-centered thinking is that people have control over decisions affecting their life. Of course, they have to be healthy and safe, but also that they're seen as valued members of their community. And we are all seen as valued members of our community because we give back, whether it's professionally, whether it's by volunteering. So are we helping people be seen as valued members? And then in adulthood, are we helping them continue to learn, not learning skills that they don't have, but actually learning what they want to learn? I love when I've had asked people, is there anything you want to learn? And they tell me things like, I want to learn how to speak Italian. I want to learn sign language. I want to learn how to make cheesecake. I want to learn how to make the food my grandmother made. Because that's a passion, that's important to them. And are we helping them think about how they can earn money and what their good life is? For advocacy, are we supporting them to make informed decisions? I always told my brother, a decision you always have, an option you always have is no. And I would always tell him, you never have to make a decision at the time they ask you, because the only decision that has to be made right away is whether to call 911. And no one's going to ask your opinion. They're going to do it because it's their duty. So are we explaining to people? And think about when people we support may give informed consent. They may be signing a lease. They may be signing medical treatment. Have someone explain all the information, not just what they want them to know, so that they'll agree. And even more important, do they know who they can ask for help? Unfortunately, we've taught people, ask your SSA, talk to your SSA. And really, that puts if you're an SSA, should you be making the decisions for people? Should you be giving your opinion? That's coercion, because you're in a position of power over them. You authorize the services, you authorize the money. Who do you talk to? I do not talk to my gynecologist about my car. I'm sorry. My team is very, I got a lot of people on my team, but I know who to talk to about certain things. And how many of you, I was an SSA, I'd have people call me and say, I need to talk to you. And I'd be like, I can't help you with that. Who can help you with that? Uh, and also helping people identify friends. And as paid staff, we are not friends. We're paid to be in people's lives. So you talk to friends, you talk to people who have experience. How can we help people identify who they can talk to? And then aging. Are we talking about, how do you want to age? Do you want to age in place? Are you going to have enough money? Even things about end of life. I had to support Nick to make end of life decisions. I supported many people who received services from the county board as they were facing the end of their life, to make sure we knew what they wanted so we knew how to support them. And then, if families are talking to you about end of life, have we talked to them about how to plan for the end of life? So, Sjogren, who has written a lot about self-determination, has said we need to teach skills. Choice making, one of two. Which t-shirt do you want to wear? What do you want, a Cheerio or a goldfish? Do you want red punch or purple punch? Helping people make decisions, walking them through what will happen if you choose that. Helping people problem solve, setting goals, and also teaching people that they can change their mind. Just because they identified a goal, they're not locked into it for a year. Helping them reach goals so that they feel success. And also self-managing. What do I do? How do I react if this happens? Self-advocacy, self-awareness, and self-knowledge. Those are the skills, the sub-skills under self-determination. How are we providing those opportunities and providing supports and accommodations? Whatever, with some people, that meant giving I was working with somebody who was involved in the justice system and went with him to court. He did not read. He did not hear speech. He did not understand enough signs to have an interpreter. And so I literally put his options in pictures and covered them for days before he went to court to make sure he understood. So what accommodations do we have to use to help people understand the information? So I'm sharing a resource that I developed. I developed it because I was asked to speak at a national conference of people with lived experience and family members. And the person who asked me said, there's a misunderstanding that we only talk about self-determination in a planning meeting, an IEP and ISP. And I want them to know that we need to recognize self-determine everywhere and all the time. So just curious, do you know how many decisions the typical adult makes in a day? Anybody got a guess? Type it in chat. Don't Google. Anybody want to guess? I bet you won't guess unless you Google. Oh, somebody typed 1,000. Yeah, Lisa, we only hope 500. Leanne, actually about 35,000. Think about it. How many decisions have you already made today? Getting out of bed, setting your alarm, what you drank, what you ate, where you're sitting right now, what you're wearing. Did you brush your teeth before you ate, after you ate? Both times. We make a lot of decisions. If you drove, did you take a detour because you saw something happening? We make about 35 decisions a day. So think about how many opportunities are we giving the people we support, not just here, sign here. So I made this resource for self-advocates, and families were like, oh my God, this is great. Can I use it? Oh, you can do whatever you want with it. And I say that to you. But if you think about the steps of informed decision making, the first thing is, do we have all the information? So if people would say to Nick, and Nick had to deal with many medical decisions, I would say, ask them, did you give me all the information? Is there anything else I need to know? That's empowering people, not just to be told, but to actually have some authority and agency over their life. Is there anything else I need to know? Do you have the information in a way you understand it? And if you don't, ask for it. Can you give it to me in simple, common, understandable language? Can you give it to me in, how many of you have said, can you give it to me in writing? I do much better when I can see it and look at it and think about it. Or do they need symbols? Do they need an audio? Do we need to record a video? How many of you Google WebMD the minute your doctor says something? We use the web. Do you understand the information? And telling people it's okay to say, I don't understand. It's okay. It doesn't minimize. How many of you have said, I have no clue what you're talking about? Please explain it to me. Not only medical, but I mean, I don't know much about my car except how to pay for it. If they start telling me stuff, I'm like, I have no clue what you're talking about. Please explain it to me. Or house repairs. Oh my goodness sakes. You need an X, Y, and Z. What the heck is that? How much? And my second question usually is how much does it cost? But do you understand? Do you have any information in a way you can review it? When I would review end of life choices with people or medical choices, I always made sure they had a copy, whether it was common understandable language, whether it was pictures, symbols, a video. Because what do you and I do when we have to make an important decision? We want to think about it. Are we giving people information? I love when we say, well, we gave them choices. We took them to see 3 programs or 3 providers. And how do they remember which one was which? Did we take a photo? Or did we take a picture of them in that environment so they can think about it and remember, oh, that's the place that they were doing this. Do you have time to make your decision without being rushed? I always told my brother to say, I want to talk to my sister. I want to think about it. And that would defer the pressure. And then it was on his ISP. And they knew if he says this, you need to call his sister because he couldn't use the phone. He physically could not make a phone call. Does the decision remain over time the same? So when I was working with someone who was dying and everybody said, oh, he doesn't know, he doesn't know. And when I sat with a nurse and him and said, you're very sick. And he dropped his head and he did this. Nobody thought he knew he was dying. He was showing us he was digging a grave. And then I had to ask him, what do you want? Do you want those living advanced directives? And he did not read. He could not talk because the cancer he had was throat cancer. He was 65. He had talked his whole life. And he did not read. And so for every advance directive, I made him pictures to show him what it was. And I double checked his comprehension multiple days because I wanted to tell him you can change your mind and make sure it held the same. How many of you think about things and take a day or two? That's why they have lemon laws. If we make a bad decision and we get a bad product, we can back out of it. And then are you able to make a decision without being influenced or directed or coerced? I'll never forget, staff said, don't worry, I'll convince him to get the surgery. I said, he does not want the surgery. I can bet my license on this. And the reason I was asked as an SLP was because I did have a license. And if somebody said, can you prove he understands? I could say, yes, I can, because I assessed him. I also could assess my brother that he could understand, and his yes, nos were accurate. A lot of people I worked with, their yes, nos were not accurate. And we have to be cautious about getting a yes, no response because we have taught people to tell us yes because we are in authority. And so I would never ask people, do you want surgery? I would say, what do you want them to do? Here are your options. What do you want them to do? Do you know that you can change your mind? When I worked with this one gentleman who was dying, I was so excited. I called my supervisor. I left her a message at like 7 o'clock. I said, okay, this is the 3rd time I've met with him. His decisions remain the same. I've tested them. I am confident I can stand on my license. I can answer the question. And when she responded to my voicemail the next morning, she asked me one question. Does he know he can change his mind? And I said, he will today. And then I thought, how do I give him that power? And because he didn't want to talk to people about his end of life. He had chosen a couple of us. He liked one of his residential providers. And so the only thing I could think of was I took a picture of myself. I put it on a piece of, on a cardboard, like an index card. And on the back, I said, if he hands you this card, call Barb immediately. And I gave him my cell phone number. So he didn't have to say anything because he couldn't. He didn't use an electric larynx. He didn't want to use it. And so I had to give him a way to indicate I want to talk to her. I want to change, not I want to change my mind. It was just enough to say, here, if he hands you this card, you need to call me right away. And then once people make a decision, just like all of us, and we try it, we may think, uh-oh, this is not what I wanted. So we can change, we can decide, we can change our mind even after we try. So as we think about empowerment, these are things we need to ask ourselves as professionals. And as I only saw one parent. I don't know if you also have a dual role as a professional. So I challenge all 19, 20 of you. When you talk to someone, are you giving them all the information in a way they understand? Do they understand? Do they have a way to review it? So it's not just here, here it is, sign it. Do they know they can change their mind? And do they know how to let you know that they've changed their mind? So we're going to put you in breakout rooms. There are 20 of you currently, I think. Erica, can you put them in groups of, do 10 in each group? It's okay. We just want you, not everybody has to talk. We hope you do. But just share with each other, how have you empowered people to make informed decisions? What strategies have you used? We'll put you in the breakout rooms for 7 minutes, and then we'd like one person from the group to either unmute and share a couple of examples or type in chat. So Erica, if you could put them in 2 groups of 10 and keep you, me, and Angie out. And just talk about what have you done to empower people? And we'll see you in 7 minutes.
All right, sending you all now. See you soon.
Thanks, Erica.
Most importantly, that this is more about not just a way of thinking, but not just a way of doing, it's a way of thinking, right? So it's not that we're just doing these things. We're not just filling out forms. We're not just saying, here's some stuff. What do you want? It's about thinking in a way that keeps that individual at the center so that they are the one who has that control. Okay, we want to make sure that that is the person who is the center of all decision making. Okay, informed decision making, informed consent. Remember, this is about making sure that it is always understood, understanding the options and consequences, and that it is not coerced. Okay, it is freely given. Okay, again, a couple more quick definitions. Capacity, competence, supported decision-making. That capacity can change. That is specific to a situation. It's situational. Competence is more global. And that supported decision-making, we all do this. We all do this all the time. We ask for help. We ask for support. We ask for clarification. We ask for time. All of that is about supported decision-making. Okay, just a couple of considerations. Big one here is that it does contribute to and impact quality of life. When somebody else is making all of your decisions for you, it impacts your quality of life. But when you are at the center, when you are the one who has that control, it can increase that quality of life. Okay, so remember, it does impact quality of life. And it's a civil right. Okay, this is something that it is a civil right. It is something that everyone should have that opportunity to engage in self-determination supported decision-making. This line right here where it says we need to support informed decisions, not just not just agreement. That to me is the biggest thing on this slide. It's not just, this is good, right? This is what you want, right? Here's the one option. You're okay with this, right? That's not what we're talking about. It's about, here are the options. Here's the information. Take your time, ask friends, then make that decision. And no, you can always change your mind. Okay, so that's what this one's kind of talking to us about here, is saying that, making sure you have all that information, again, making sure that even after you've made a decision, you can say, wait, I talked to somebody else and I want to rethink this. It's not about being rushed. It's not that you have to make this decision right now. It's take your time, think about it. Okay, so these are some of those important things to help people to feel empowered to be able to make their own decisions, those informed decisions. Okay, and it could vary from place to place and time to time. All right, it doesn't necessarily mean that because somebody is making a decision in this place, in this realm, that they're going to make all the same decisions or with the same supports or less supports or more supports, right? It'll change. It could change depending on the situation, depending on the circumstance. Okay, and this sheet, so you have this, it was dropped in the chat. And this is a one-pager that comes from SDMNO, which is the Supported Decision-Making Network of Ohio. There is a group of folks that have come together to create a nonprofit organization that is all about promoting and supporting folks with supported decision-making and informed decision-making. So this handout that you have kind of walks through and spells out pretty much the things I just said, and it's all on a one-pager. So this is a nice document to have with you and keep handy as a reminder. It's not something that you hand out to people and say, here's what supported decision-making is. It's a reminder to have those conversations with folks to help them to understand and to help them to be able to engage with informed decision-making, supported decision-making, as best as they can. And like I said, it could change by situation. That's what that capacity piece is about. Okay, it depends on the situation. It depends on the circumstance. I may be okay to make a decision about whether or not I want to move forward with a surgery, but I may not be so good at making a decision about what I want to do about should I fix my car or not right now. I might have to call in a friend and ask them about, should I fix my car? Should I get a new one? Should I do this part? Should I do that part? But if it's about, I'm going to have surgery, okay, I can manage that. Okay, I can say yes or no to that. So again, that's that circumstance, that situation. So that's why I supported decision-making, again, just kind of as a reference, as a reminder to help us to remember that it's not a blanket. It's not, oh, you are a supported decision maker, go. It is dependent. Okay, and it's going to depend on circumstances. It's going to depend on the information and depend on that individual's capacity, but it really goes back to that individual. So making sure that that individual is a part of their decision-making. Okay. All right. So I am going to stop my share. All right. And I'm going to turn it over to Barb to get into the application piece of this.
Thanks, Angie. And I love how you said, capacity is in the moment. And there may be times, when I think of my capacity, I recently talked to a friend who said, do you realize that our two mutual friends, whenever they're together, the one always defers to the other. Like she'll always say, well, wherever she wants to go for dinner or whatever she wants to do. And, she said, do you think that there's something going on there? And I said, you know what? When I think about the woman who says, wherever she wants to go for dinner, and I just spent 4 days with them. And I did have that experience where, we were trying to plan dinner, and my one friend said, well, wherever she wants to go will be fine with me. And I said, think about the job she has. She is an advocate for a state system, not Ohio. And she works all day talking to families and helping them make decisions. Do they have the information? Is their loved one receiving quality care? I said, when I was a service coordinator or a support administrator, and even before I was working with families, at the end of the day, I was exhausted. The last decision I wanted to make was what we were having for dinner or where we were going out. And so sometimes the simplest decision can put us right over the edge. And she deferred because I'm tired of making decisions. I've advocated all day for people. I've run up against government. I've run up against policymakers. I've run up against families, and I don't want to decide where we're going to dinner. So as you support people, recognize that there may be times when they do not have the capacity. So I'm going to go through some Charting the Life Course resources, excuse me, that really help us think about supported decision-making. What I love about all of the Charting the Life Course resources is they are pretty simple, common, understandable language, and easy to apply. And they're short, 1 or 2 pages, that's it. You can find these resources on lifecoursetools.com. Go to the tab that says library, then exploring life domains, and then supported decision-making. And there's a whole page of resources related to supported decision-making. Now, in Ohio, supported decision-making is not legally recognized as an alternative to guardianship. The SDMNO is working to perhaps include it in law, but also to have the judicial system, medical system, recognize that all of us use supported decision-making, and that people with disabilities do not necessarily need a guardian all the time, but they can use supported decision-making, talking to people they trust. The most common tool is the supported decision-making portfolio. All of the portfolios have 3 tools in them that if you've taken any session on Charting the Life course, you know that it's a description, a person-centered description, a trajectory, and an integrated support star. This person-centered description is a little different because it's just focused on supported decision-making. So the top banner or section is, what do others think is important to me when I'm making choices and decisions? So what do they think? The people who support them, what do they think is important to them? Is it that they make decisions about what they do during the day? Is it that they have the information in a certain way? Is it that they're asked and not told? Is it that they're given time? So think about if you are a parent and you are teaching decision-making skills, because they just don't happen. We have to be intentional. We teach and we give experiences and opportunities. What did you identify was important to your children when you were teaching them how to make decisions? Was it that you explained it versus someone else? My brother Nick wanted me to explain things. If my mother said, well, let me tell, he would shut down. And that's probably the mother-sibling relationship, but he would listen to me. He also didn't want our brother Jim talking to him because he goes, he just doesn't get it, sis. because I was the one that made sure he had all the information. I was not telling him, Nick, you should. What is important to the person when they make choices and decisions? Again, a lot of people have told me, don't tell me what to do, give me at least 2 options. When I say no, I want you to listen to me. So what has the person said, or what is important to them? I can't tell you how many people have said, don't tell me what to do, give me at least 2 options. And then the third section is, what supports does the person need, or do I need when I'm making decisions? What supports have worked well for me? So think about when you're supporting people. I worked a lot with people who were not literate. And so I could not give them information in writing. And I use things like videos, pictures, photographs, symbols. How do we expect people, especially when we gave people options? You know, a lot of times I was helping people choose what they wanted to do during the day, or perhaps where they wanted to live. How do we take them to different places and then say, so which one did you like? You and I would, well, I'm a paper person, so I would be writing notes. And so what I would do is ask people, what'd you like about this opportunity, this job, this place? And then share it with them or take a photograph. Remember, this is the place you went to. What helps people stay motivated? You know, the thing that will shut me down the fastest is anyone who says you need to. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm not listening to you anymore. How do I learn best? And we've talked about learning styles, but also if people are making decisions, when you make a decision, think about what you go through. Do you make a list? Do you do a plus and minus, or positives and negatives, or, you know, what do you do to learn? Do you Google? Do you read? Do you watch videos? Do you talk to people? How do you learn? And then what's the best way to encourage me? And that's hard. I will tell you that it is very hard to support someone to make an informed decision, because they may make a decision you don't agree with. But our role is not that they agree with what we would do, but our role is, did they understand all the consequences? Did they understand the decision? Now we have a trajectory. And as you know, the trajectory is a way to plan how to move forward. On the right side of any trajectory, we ask, what is your vision for what you want? And we always ask, what is their vision for a good life? In order to support people to have a good life and to make informed decisions, we need to know what that good life looks like. So think about it. If a good life is okay, so for my brother, when he was at the end of his life, a good life was that he did not have to go back to the hospital. He wanted to stay out of the hospital. He wanted to be out of pain, and he was in a lot of pain. And so those determinants were very important with, okay, so now what decisions do you have to make? Because he did not want to go back in the hospital. He did not want to be in pain. So it's very important to know what a good life is so we can support people to make informed decisions, and maybe remind them, you said this before, does that still hold? In that vision, you see a bigger area, and that asks, what decisions and choices do I want to make myself or with help from supporters? So for Nick, the decisions he wanted to make for himself was what he did during the day. He knew he was dying. He knew he wanted to go visit friends. He wanted to go visit his former day program so he could go see the staff that he had relationships with, people he knew. He wanted to spend time with family. He wanted to be out of pain. He wanted, I'm trying to think of what else. But again, that guided the decisions that he wanted to be part of. And then we always ask people, when we ask about their trajectory, what don't you want? So what is not a good life? That little area under the red banner. But then the larger area was, what decisions and choices do I not, do I not want someone else making for me? And he did not want people to make decisions about what happened and his medical, or, what kind of medical care he wanted, what kind of medical care did he not want. He wanted to make those decisions. This is a planning trajectory, so it has more sections. We go to the far left, and remember, in Charting the Life course, we talk about the importance of having experiences and opportunities. Supported decision-making, it's critical that people have experiences and opportunities. So on that far left, now we're asking, what's happened in the past that helped me understand? What did people do? How did they support me? What has helped me communicate my preferences? So did they have a way to communicate their preferences? Did they have, and I don't mean just speech. I worked with several people who did not use speech. And so again, had to use other modes of communication. I talked to you about the gentleman who I literally gave him a photograph of me that he could hand to anybody to indicate, I need to talk to her. And then who's helped me follow through with my decisions? Because not everybody can. Think about in your own life. Are there people in your family that you will talk to? Are there people in your family that you don't want involved? Because you know that either they can't support you to make your own decision because it's too emotional, or they'll try to persuade you and not listen to you. And then on the bottom of that, past life experiences, what's happened in the past that made it hard for you to understand and make an informed decision? And I say you, but I mean the person. So maybe it was a certain person talking to them. Maybe it was that they weren't given time. And then the middle boxes are, how do we move forward towards your vision of not only a good life, but being able to make decisions that are important to you with the help that you need. And that's supported decision-making. So what do I need to help me understand the issues and the options? What do I need now to help me communicate? And what do I need to help me follow through? And then on the bottom, what needs to happen to avoid those barriers? So I supported a young man who was going to graduate from school, and his mother called the board and wanted help. When I called her and talked to her and asked her, why did you call the board? She said, my son is graduating on Friday from this school in Cleveland, and on Monday, I want him to go to this day program. And I said, okay, have you been to that day program? Why are you picking that one? And she goes, because it's the one they told me at school that he was closest to. And I said, well, we don't do that. You get to pick. You get to go see places. I worked with her son for a year. I only heard him say 2 words. One was no, and it was an adamant refusal. And the other word he said was mom, and he said it just like that. So So I thought, how am I going to help her see there are other options? So I took videos to show her of people working during the day. And when she saw the videos, and they were people from Cuyahoga County, so it wasn't like I was showing her, videos from somewhere else in the world. And she said, why can't my son do one of those jobs? He can't work in a restaurant bar because it's too noisy, it's too busy. I said, I don't know, why can't he? We also took her to visit some different places. And I said to her, how after every visit, what did you like about this place? Because I thought her son is not going to answer the question, do you want to go here? Do you want to work here? And she said, I didn't like that place so much. And I said, oh, okay, what didn't you like? She goes, they really didn't talk to me and they didn't talk to him. I said, okay. So families have different quality indicators than we might have as professionals. I said, so she picked a place. She said, I think this will be good. They were very nice to me. They talked to him. He didn't seem to, shy away or anything. And I said, okay. We did get him to go for a couple of days for a trial to see. I said, how will you know this is a good place? How will you know that he likes it? And she said, Barb, I'll know because he gets up in the morning and doesn't fight me to get ready. He'll get dressed and he will leave. He'll pack his lunch and he will get in that cab. And she goes, I said, wow, how do you know that's what's going to happen? And she said, because 2 years ago, he refused to get up and go to school. And I knew something was wrong. He could not tell me with words, but he refused to get up. He refused to go to school. I called the school. I said, something happened. And they said, no, nothing happened. I called the principal. I said, something happened. What happened? Something happened to my son at school. He's refusing to go. She got satisfaction, and then he went to school. He would get up and go. She goes, so I'll know that he likes it because he'll get up and go. I said, okay. So we may not be having conversations and getting answers from people. We may have to talk to the people who know them the best and get those answers of what works, what doesn't work, what has helped in the past. What helped for this young man was actually going, mom watching him, because I couldn't judge, but mom could tell. And mom had her own quality indicators. And then we have the STAR. So you could do the support STAR generally for this person. How do they make decisions? But I like to do it because capacity is about a specific decision. I think it's more valuable to do it around a specific decision. So picking something to do during the day. I've helped people move. So where do they want to go? What kind of support do they need? What kind of experience have they had? And again, it's the same 5 areas: personal strengths, technology, relationships, which, remember, when you're doing the STAR, relationships are unpaid people. It's not the SSA, it's not the teacher, it's not the instructional intervention specialist. It's not the job coach. It's unpaid people. So who can they talk to? Unpaid. And usually it's family, friends, and acquaintances, or people who know people. And then what's in the community for supports and eligibility specific. That's where county board, school, OOD, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. That's where all of that support would go, the providers. If you are a family member, because I had this question on a recent training, if you are a family member that is also a paid provider for your loved one, your name could go twice on this STAR. Once when you are providing paid supports, and once when you are not, when you're just being the family member. So, and as I told a sibling who asked me about where would I go? And I asked her, are you a paid provider for your brother? And she said, yes. And I said, when you're paid, when you're on the clock, your support goes under eligibility specific. When you're not on the clock, it would go under relationships. So again, what is your relationship with the person? On that same page, life course tools, library, and then integrated supports, there are starter stars. So sometimes people are like, what should I be thinking about under supported decision-making and personal strengths? There are starter stars. There's one for each of the 6 life domains, plus one for supported decision-making and respite. When we talk about supported decision-making, the starter stars that I think are helpful to people is the one for advocacy and engagement, one of the 6 life domains. Remember, we talk about life domains in the Ohio ISP. These are 6 areas of our life that are interconnected, that really define our quality of life, where we live, what we do, our social relationships, how we feel safe, what we do to feel healthy, and also how we advocate for ourselves. So there are some things to think about in each area of the star. There's also one on the right for supported decision-making. So how do people communicate their preferences, their choices? What technology can help them? And boy, do we have a lot of technology now. I worked with one young woman who had a job and she worked in an office doing clerical tasks. She filed, she copied, she did clerical tasks. And when she got angry, when the copy machine did not work, so y'all know about copy machines, right? That happens pretty frequently. It jams. When the copy machine did not work, she would kick it and curse like a sailor. And that was not acceptable in an office environment. So informed decision-making is also telling people what is acceptable, socially acceptable in an environment. What is the culture? You don't swear. So what we did was she used technology. She was very proud of the fact that she had an associate's degree in technology from Tri-C, Cuyahoga Community College. And she had her own iPad. And so we videotaped her when problem solving, what to do when the copy machine didn't work. But we also videotaped her acting, kicking the machine and cursing, so that she could watch the videos of herself, what she should do, what she shouldn't do. Now, it was a great idea. We thought it was great. It immediately changed her behavior. She did not kick the machine or curse like a sailor. But when she watched herself doing what she shouldn't do, like kick the machine and curse, she also knew we were filming her. So she would look at the camera. Oh, you're an MF. We'd be like, okay, she's acting, but it was impactful. It worked. She kept her job. She knew how to problem solve. So how are we using technology in creative ways? Another resource, I really like this resource. It's Exploring Decision-Making Supports. It's from Charting the Life course. And what I love about this one, I have done this. I had the opportunity within the past year to work at a family retreat with people with lived experience, adults, and their family members. And I did separate sessions, one for the young adults and one for their family, which included parents, a grandmother, there were a couple siblings in the room, and talking about decision making and informed decision making and supporting people. What I love about this is when I asked the self-advocates, what decisions do you make for yourself? They just looked at me. And I reminded them, as we did last week, that we make about 30 to 35,000 choices and decisions a day. And what this tool does is it takes decisions, common decisions that we make, organizes them by the 6 life domains. So on the screen is only daily life and employment and healthy living. But I asked them, you know, here are some decisions you probably have already made. We were at a hotel. They came down for breakfast and had a, you know, there was a breakfast buffet. And then they came to the session that I was holding. And so I said, I am sure you made a lot of decisions already today. Did you get up? Whether you were coming down to get breakfast, what you ate off of that buffet line. And they had never thought about, these are decisions and choices I make every single day. And then I said, so given that, you probably chose your shirt, you know, what you're wearing. What other choices have you made? And one young man raised his hand, you know, Barb. And I said, yes. He said, I made a choice to wear deodorant today. And I said, and we're all very happy. But I thought, you know, people don't even realize the choices they make. And we don't even recognize maybe the possible decisions and offering people those opportunities. So on this chart, you see there's lots of decisions. You know, what do you make? What decisions do you make? Do you decide what you're gonna, where you're gonna go during the day? Do you decide what you're gonna wear, what you're gonna eat, your plan for the day, your schedule? Then you see 3 colored columns. The first column is blue, and you see the icon of a person in a blue circle. And that's the principle of the person, okay? So those would be decisions that the person says, I can make those decisions. I don't need help. I can make those decisions on my own. The second column is purple, and you see that it is the person, but you see that there's people around them, and that is the symbol for the person in the context of family, whether it's biological or chosen. And so the purple column would be, I need some help when I make this decision. And then the third column is green, and the icon is like a building with columns. So representing that, you know, that's the system, that's, you know, perhaps the government. And those are decisions I want someone else to make for me. So you're trying to gather, what are people's comfort? Are they even recognizing that they have control over decisions affecting their life? I will tell you, this was confusing for the self-advocates, because they would say, they would pick the green column for some things, and they would say, because I want to talk to my parents. And I'd be like, okay, well, that's the purple. So it's not a one-time conversation. It's over time. I know that there aren't any